You got the thing, the job, the promotion, the relationship, the result you worked toward for longer than most people around you knew you were working, and you told someone about it, and they said congratulations, and something was wrong. Not with the word. The word was right, something in the delivery, something in the half second, before the smile arrived, something in the energy that should have matched yours, and didn't, and you felt it immediately. That specific deflation. The kind that doesn't come from failure, but from winning. In front of the wrong person, you wanted to share something good, and somehow you ended up feeling like you did something wrong by having it. That feeling has a name, and the person who gave it to you has a pattern. And once you see the pattern, you will never unsee it. Jealousy between people who are close does not look like jealousy. That is the entire problem. It does not arrive with a label. It does not announce itself. It looks like support, with something slightly off about it. It looks like concern. That feels more like criticism. It looks like someone who cares about you doing things that don't feel like caring, in ways you cannot explain without sounding paranoid, and so you explain them away. They are just going through something. They are not great at showing emotion. They are happy for me. They just have a strange way of showing it. The explanations feel generous. They feel mature, like the kind of thing a reasonable person does for someone they love. But generosity and accuracy are not the same thing. And the cost of explaining away what is actually happening is that you keep walking into the same room, carrying your wins and walking out, carrying them smaller than when you arrived. Here are 5 specific things jealous people do when they cannot compete with you, and the psychology behind every single one. You share something good, a win, a step forward, something that cost you real time, real effort, real sacrifice that most people around you never saw. And the response comes back, technically supportive, but wrapped in something else. Must be nice. Yeah, but you had help though, right? Not everyone gets those kinds of opportunities. Timing really worked out for you. There is a congratulations in there somewhere. If you pulled the conversation apart word by word, you could not point to a single line and call it an attack. But you felt it, the win getting smaller with every response. The pride you walked in with, quietly, leaving the room before the conversation ended. Here is the psychology underneath. Humans do not measure themselves against abstract standards. We measure ourselves against the people closest to us, the friend we grew up with, the sibling who started in the same house, the colleague who started at the same level. They are the ruler. When you grow, the ruler moves, whether they choose it to or not. Your win stops being just your win. It becomes a measurement of the gap between where you are and where they are, and the nervous system, before the conscious mind catches up, reacts. It tries to shrink what you said, because if your win is smaller, the gap is smaller. And if the gap is smaller, the feeling becomes manageable. That is why the dismissals always feel personal, but never quite sound like attacks. Because they are not attacks. They are someone trying to feel okay in a room where your existence keeps reminding them of something they haven't done. This one is harder to catch, because on the surface, the words sound almost supportive. You got so lucky. The timing was perfect for you. You knew the right people. Things just fell into place. Nobody is shrinking your win anymore. They are not saying it didn't happen. They are just slowly, carefully rewriting how it happened. And you might not notice at first. You walk away from the conversation, feeling slightly off, but unable to name exactly why, until you hear them tell your story to someone else. And somehow, the years of work didn't make it into the version they're telling. But the luck did, the timing did, the connections did. Your story, in their mouth, became a story about fortune, not about the choices you made when choosing was hard, not about the work you did when the outcome wasn't guaranteed. Here is what is happening underneath. If your success was earned, that means it was possible, and if it was possible, it means they could have done it, but they didn't. And sitting with that is genuinely painful for some people, so the story has to shift just enough that your success becomes something that happened to you rather than something you chose and built. Because luck doesn't require self-reflection. Luck is something that happens to people. It doesn't ask anything of them, but effort means you chose what they didn't choose, and they cannot sit with that. So they trade one for the other, quietly, without fully realizing they are doing it. And you will never argue your way back into the accurate version of your own story with someone whose self-image depends on the inaccurate one. This one doesn't arrive loudly, it arrives gradually. The messages that used to come quickly start taking longer. The conversations get shorter. Plans become harder to make without any explanation for why. And when you share something good, the response is brief or missing entirely, and the conversation moves forward as if you said nothing. And because nothing was said directly, nothing you can point to, nothing that constitutes a clear action, you do not think, they are pulling away from me. You think, what did I do? You go back through the last conversation, looking for the moment something changed. You start softening yourself, sharing less, waiting longer before mentioning anything good to keep the temperature of the relationship from rising. You are quietly making yourself smaller to solve a problem you were never the cause of. Here is what is actually happening. Being close to you is costing them something. Every conversation, every update, every time they are in the same space as you, they feel the gap. And the gap is uncomfortable enough that they have started managing their exposure to it. The distance is not designed to punish you, it is not aimed at you. It is their nervous system, creating space from the discomfort of watching someone they know become someone they wanted to be. But you don't know that, so you fill the blank with yourself. You assume you did something wrong. You search for the moment. You spend months, sometimes longer, going back through old conversations, looking for a mistake that was never made. There was no moment. There was no mistake. You just kept growing, and proximity to your growth started to hurt them. And they handled it by stepping back without telling you why. Some of it is not even happening in front of you. It is happening in conversations you were never part of. They have changed. They think they are better than everyone now. It went to their head. They're not who they used to be. Small comments you never hear until someone tells you, and you realize an entire version of you has been circulating among people you know for longer than you realized. A version that is not you, a version that was built specifically to make the gap between your lives feel less significant. Because here is what that version does. If you are arrogant, then your growth is not admirable. If you have changed in a bad way, then their staying still doesn't reflect poorly on them. If you think you are better than everyone, then nobody is missing anything by not being where you are. The narrative is not about you. It is the structure that allows them to feel okay about themselves while the distance between your lives keeps growing. And they need other people to agree because a story with witnesses feels like truth. And truth is easier to live inside than a story you built alone to protect yourself. You cannot correct this narrative from the outside. You cannot behave your way back into the accurate version. They have chosen not to tell. The story was never really about you. It was always about what they needed to believe to feel okay about themselves. Here is what sits underneath. Every pattern we have covered, the deflation, the rewritten story, the unexplained distance, the narrative built in rooms you weren't in, all of it is attempting to accomplish the same thing, return you to the version of yourself they felt comfortable next to, the version that needed them, the version that hadn't gone further, the version where the gap between you was small enough that standing next to you didn't cost them anything. And you have probably, without fully realizing it, tried to help them with that. You shared less. You waited longer before mentioning wins. You softened the edges of your progress to keep the relationship feeling even. And every time you did, something in you got a little quieter. That quiet is the cost of making yourself smaller for people who cannot expand to meet who you are becoming. Here is what the psychology is consistent about. People who cannot genuinely celebrate others are almost always people who have not learned to feel good about themselves without comparison. Your growth is not the problem. Your growth is a mirror that reflects something back to them they are not ready to look at. You did not put that reflection there. You cannot take it away, and staying smaller does not make the mirror disappear. It just means you carried the cost of their discomfort inside your own life, inside your own choices, inside the quiet shrinking of an ambition that deserved to be exactly as large as it actually was. The room was never going to be comfortable, with the full version of you in it. And the full version of you is the only version worth being in any room. You got the thing. You worked for it in ways most people around you never saw, and when you shared it with someone who was supposed to celebrate it, something happened in the half second before the smile that told you everything you didn't want to know. You know now what that half second was. It was not a reflection of whether your win was real. It was not evidence that you did something wrong by succeeding. It was the gap between where you are and where they are, showing up in the only place it had left to go. In the half second before they remembered to smile, the win was real, the work was real. Every late decision, every uncomfortable choice, every moment you kept going when stopping would have been easier was real. Nobody's half second changes any of that. Nobody's inability to genuinely celebrate you is a verdict on whether you deserve to be celebrated. The right people do not need you smaller to feel okay standing next to you. They exist. And they are worth every bit of energy you have been spending trying to earn a reaction from people who were never going to give it to you. No matter how small you made yourself, stop making yourself smaller. The thing you got was worth getting. And so is everything that comes next.